Chairman, we're now live on YouTube.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wellbeing panel on Wednesday, the 3rd of February 1921. This is a public meeting and it's being live streamed. What did I say? Sorry.
1921.
Oh, right. Okay. We're just coming out of the war. We've been live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. We should follow the general etiquette of the remote meetings, and the microphone should remain on mute to avoid background noise unless invited to speak. Please, can you raise your hand in the chat or put a question in the chat, and hopefully either between Dawn or the officers or myself, we'll try and let you speak at the appropriate time. So we'll move to item 1, to receive declarations of interest under Protocol 1. Could I ask the committee officer to, Dawn, can you do a roll call and just take anybody's declarations of interest, please?
Apologies, Chairs, that's going to be me tonight.
Apologies, Leah.
No worries. So if you could just confirm that your attendance and if you have any declarations of interest. Thank you. Councillor Crotch?
Yeah, present and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Folger?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Lawn?
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Morrell?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Neeson?
Here, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Prutton? Sorry, Councillor, you're on.
Present and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw?
No declarations.
Councillor Starling?
Present, no declarations.
And Councillor Wymark?
Present, no declarations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that completes that. And I think that was a full. I don't think there are any apologies for absence on item 2.
No, we received no apologies of absence.
Thank you. Next is to receive the minutes of the meeting from the 9th of December 2020. Propose, if it's okay with everybody, just to take them on block. I don't think we need to read out.
No.
Could everybody just confirm for a matter of accuracy, everything okay?
Chairman?
Yes.
I just noticed on page 7, at the end of the last item, it says it was unanimously by a show of hands. Unanimously what?
Chairman, I think the word resolved just follows after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was unanimously agreed to, and then to resolve them. So, is there anything else before we move on? Okay. So, any matters arising from the minutes? Can't see anything. No. Okay, so next item on the agenda, item 5, we have with us members from the Youth Advisory Board. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, please, and make your presentation.
Hi, my name's Colin Dutton. I'm the youth worker that works with the young people on Broadland's Youth Advisory Board. I work for MAP, a local youth charity in Norfolk. I'm guessing that someone's got the slide. Fantastic. And I'm going to pass you over to some of the young people that are going to go through the PowerPoint today. And the first one is Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm one of the young commissioners on Broadland YAB. So we just wanted to start off with telling you guys what the YAB actually is, just in case you haven't met us before or heard about us. So the Youth Advisory Board is a group of young commissioners and professionals from their local area that meet to assess the priorities for young people, which we find out in a consultation each year. that we have from young people. We are young commissioners who collaboratively with those professionals decide how best to work towards those priorities. This may be to campaign on them, commission new projects, or help to improve current ones. We have helped local community groups, councils and statutory services on how to be accessible to young people, and have supported Broadland District Council, parish councils, Norfolk County Council, NSFT, youth groups and schools with their project designs, advertising amongst other things on how to best support young people. So I'll hand over to one of our new young commissioners, Connor, to talk about what the YAB means to us.
Hello, and I'm Connor, and this is what the YAB means to us. The YAB gives young people a voice. We consult with young people in Broadland and act on their behalf. Through being on YAB, we have listened and shared what is important for young people in Broadland and prioritised those issues. The YAB provides us with opportunities to campaign on issues that are important to us and have our voices heard by the people that can improve our lives. The YAB gives us the opportunity to help shape services for us to make them better. The YAB has given us a chance to fund projects that young people want and need in Broadland, and that makes a difference. The YAB allows us to meet new people and share experiences and learn from each other. We have opportunities to grow as individuals, and it helps us with confidence in other areas of our lives. By being on YAB, we get to discuss political things, and that helps us if we want a career in politics. And I'm going to pass it over to Sophie.
Sophie's not here today, but I think Izzy has kindly agreed to take over. If that's okay, Izzy. Otherwise, I can do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, brilliant.
So yeah, I think we want to talk about what our achievements have been. So a bit about what we've done, kind of last year and things like that. So we launched our campaign group. So we've been focusing on both kind of short-term and long-term projects. So we've campaigned for both like Black History Month and Pride Month, and at the moment we're doing LGBT Pride History Month, and we're just kind of having those conversations as part of our campaign group. We joined I Will. We joined in their campaign to try and demand young people to have a voice in decisions around COVID. So we emailed MPs and things like that. We've had meetings with many council members before, and and we've written to our MPs a lot to try and make change. I think, as Emily said, we also have commissioned projects. So the ones we currently have are, the first one's called Smile, which is by Lola Stafford, and this is kind of one-to-one coaching, like careers coaching and advice, as kind of our response to COVID, because we realised that a lot of schools now online have dropped that sort of thing, as it's seen as less important. But actually, we thought it was a really important project to do to help young people's well-being in this time, because actually I think that's a cause of anxiety for a lot of people. So yeah, that's a project we're currently doing, which we're really passionate about. Then we've also are doing Wellbeing. Well, they originally started as residentials to help low-level mental health improve. However, they've now turned into day sessions because of COVID as well. And these are to help people with low-level mental health support, give them tools and things to help like cope with challenges and to stop some mental health concerns getting worse. And then our last one is a positive activities tender, which at the moment we've put the worker on furlough because this is to do with getting out in the community. So we commissioned the Benjamin Foundation to help basically build up youth groups and youth services in Broadland, because we realised this was something that was lacking. Yeah, but at the moment it's really hard to get in touch with these groups because a lot of them have closed down. So we've followed her until further notice, but that's another project we're doing. And then also we've done Young Commissioner Development. So this is to help young commissioners be better at our job, which is commissioning projects. And so we've done training and residentials in February 2020 when we could. And we did some campaign training and some diversity training, and that was really good. Other things we've done is the Norfolk Youth Against Bullying campaign, which was really, really successful. We did that in 2019 and online for our 2021 back in, I think it was October or November. Yeah, and I think there's a, yeah, if you, on the PowerPoint, there's a photo from that. And then in terms of, sorry, I'm talking quite a lot, but this is both my section and Sophie's section, so, but, and then, yeah, we want to talk about what we're doing at the moment. So our focus on 2021 is well-being of both us as young commissioners and other people in Broadland. So we're doing a lot of more one-to-one sessions and more kind of light-hearted sessions to help with our well-being and to help improve the well-being in Broadland. And we're joining with the We Got This campaign, which, so yeah, we're helping spread that message and yeah, joining in with that. And some of us have helped kind of shape that campaign as young people. And we've also commissioned some wellbeing bags to target young carers and the In-Care Council, just, yeah, as another way to spread wellbeing, which is our, yeah, goal at the moment. So, yeah, I hope I haven't missed anything. Colin, you can join if I have, but yeah, thank you.
I think you all did amazingly well there. You summarised it brilliantly. And just on the last slide, only last week, the young people came up with a recipe for happiness. And I think that's going to be quite a lot of the message this year is trying to promote with young people across Norfolk that they can, with other people, get through it, get the support that they need, and a bit of peer support, trying to promote the things that people like to do. And that's where our focus will be, is finding out what young people like to maintain their mental health and see if we can support that. And I guess being on the wellbeing panel today, the question is how can we work with, or how can the young people work with Broadland District Council to do that, and yeah, how we can work together. So that's all. Just one thing as well. I know this is live in the minutes. Is the furlough decision is a tender? That's a Benjamin Foundation decision, not a youth advisory board. We wanted them to delay it, but I just didn't want that to get out there, because obviously as a body we can't make the decision on behalf of the organisation. But we did want them to delay the project because we wanted the positive activities to happen when the restrictions eased. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, thanks to the young people and thanks for listening today.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you to all of the speakers, and that was really insightful and very helpful in everything. Councillors, do you have any questions for Colin or any of the members who spoke? Councillor Shaw? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Shaw. Yep, you can speak, Councillor Shaw. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how are you actually coping with the COVID situation? Because obviously meeting is going to be very difficult at the moment.
Go on, Izzy, you answer. Go on.
So yeah, we've moved all of our meetings onto Zoom. and we have done since the very beginning. So we're meeting at the moment twice a week. One session is more YAB focus and the other one is kind of games wellbeing focus. And yeah, that's what we've been doing at the moment. We did have a few face-to-face sessions when the situation wasn't so bad, but that's all been stopped at the moment. So we had, obviously it was all safe and socially distanced with masks and things, but yeah, so everything's online at the moment.
So once the COVID situation's over, hopefully not too long, what do you intend to do then?
Well, I think we'll go back to how we were before. So we had meetings less often, and we had them, I think it was once every 2 weeks, and we met face to face. I think there's a high chance we'll incorporate some of the online things back. So things like one-to-one sessions that we found really useful that we can do online. I think things like that will get incorporated. But yeah, I think going back to face-to-face meetings is really beneficial, and there's lots of things that we struggle with online a little bit. So yeah.
And from a youth worker perspective, I think we will adapt and continue to adapt to what young people require. So as long as we're safe and we have a COVID strategy and risk assessments in place, we will continue as the guidelines suggest. And then when it's eased, we'll go back to the young people and find out what they would like. And I'm pretty sure some will like a continuation of online, and some would like some more physical space meetings and stuff. So we'll just go with what the guidance at the time and what's the most safest at that time.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking, do you have a sort of like a subscription to this for the young people, or do people just turn up?
I think I might be talking for the young people here, but generally we have as an organisation, we have a membership process, but we do give young people 2 or 3 sessions just to see if they like it, and if they don't, then we haven't obtained their data unnecessarily. And then if they do really like it, then we'll take their membership. But there's no, it's not a subscription. It's more like a come on, and if you like it, then great, and we'll give you a membership form and work with you. If not, then that's okay too. There's no kind of commitment other than if you are involved and you want to support your local area, it takes a little bit of time and effort to do that. So yeah, I think a few here are quite a couple of years into being in the AB now. So yeah, but again, just my details, I can contact them and contact them in any way that they feel most comfortable. So if anyone's aware of any young people that would like to be involved, then fantastic, send them my way. We are going to try and get into all of the district newsletters and the Broadland newsletter too, and schools newsletters. So we'll be doing that. That's going to be our focus, or my focus for recruitment.
I take it this will be going out to schools and other groups like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super.
Chairman, you have questions, I think, from Councillor Waymark and Councillor Crotch and Councillor Lawn.
Yep, and I'll put a question in myself after that as well. So Councillor Waymark.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, welcome. Thank you very much for coming to the Wellbeing panel. I know I met some of you probably about a year ago at Carrabrick. It seems a long time ago. Well, it was a long time ago. So thank you very much for coming. I really welcome all of your input, really. I think it's so important that we hear from young people and get their perspective on, you know, what they think works for young people, because, you know, with the best will in the world, you know, I'm a little bit detached from that. I'm a little bit older, as you may have noticed. Well, I've cut off my grey beard this morning, but yeah, but no. So I just want to say thank you. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is around supporting mental health. Obviously, you do a lot of work around supporting mental health and well-being, particularly at the moment. And I know there are some services out there through the Wellbeing Service, and there's Couth, isn't there, for young people and whatever. And I just wondered if you thought there was anything else we could do as a council really to help support people generally with well-being, but particularly young people. So it's just a thought. Thank you.
Does anyone want to answer? Okay. I mean, I don't particularly like to answer for young people, but
yeah.
I
Sorry, I
think,
put you on the spot there.
No, well, I think the first thing would probably to open up a dialogue. I really think open up the dialogue, have good conversations. It probably takes a bit of a conversation away from the panel, so in between panel meetings, and come along to, we can have a session set out for that process, and really there isn't one way to do it. They'll give their opinions based on either the consultation or their own experience, and yeah, we've worked really closely with NSFT and the council for the redesign and transformation, so, and that has been through conversation and opening up a dialogue. So yeah, anytime we can set up a separate, again, I'm talking from, we can set up a separate meeting, or embed it in an existing meeting to bring people along that would like to have that conversation with young people about what we can do. And just this is such an important process. The first step is to welcome young people in and listen and have that conversation. So this is a fantastic start. And we're quite lucky in Broadland that we've got very passionate young people and very passionate councillors and officers as a council. So that's a winning formula, I think.
No, it's really important to have that dialogue. You know, it's a two-way thing, and for me, you know, I want to listen to young people. I think it's so important. So I'm all ears, dare I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Next, I have Councillor Adrian Crotch.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, guys, for presenting. I thought it was a really insightful presentation. You know, well presented, and especially well done to Izzy if you were standing in for somebody else as well. That's never easy to do. So well done for that. I really like the bit we were talking around helping local communities to do new projects and getting involved to engage with young people. I just wondered if you had sort of one example of something that you'd really done that could bring that to life. And then I guess if our communities want to engage with you to do some extra things for young people, I guess how do we really put that into motion?
I mean, the best example I can give is the positive activity, the positive activities tender that hasn't quite gone out yet. But once that gets put into motion, we will have improved so many of the resources that are already in Broadland. And yeah, I think that's the main example I can give. Sorry, I forgot the second half of your question.
It was either an example of something that you'd helped in a community, whether it's a playground or something like that. And the second part was how do people get in touch with you to get you engaged?
Okay, so I think the best way to get engaged is through like Colin, our youth worker. So we've done work with Future Pass before and given advice with them. I think that's about work experience, and we really help design and give our input. And things like that is what we're all about, you know, getting ideas or helping with what young people really want and helping with designing, things like that. We also, I think, like small grants and things, we sometimes come to us as well, and that helps all sorts of things. There was one, like from training of youth work and things like that to, putting things in place in the community. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the YAB has a commissioning cycle every year, and through consultation and local need, the young people and the board members will come together to work out what the priorities will be. And you know, you could use Project Smile as well. I think that where young people in Broadland were talking about careers, opportunities, and a lack of advice and mentoring, the young commissioners commissioned Lola Stafford to offer that, and it's likely that that could be a positive step for this year. We know that young people will be massively impacted by job losses this year, and so their futures might be uncertain, and some mentoring and advice to support them through that process might be the one thing that helps that individual or groups of people for their well-being. So yeah, there's so many ways that the young people can help and support anyone that wants their advice and experience. It's again, yeah, I've put the email into the chat, and we're really welcome. We're a very welcome group of young people. They are so open and honest and willing to have that conversation. So anytime anyone wants to pop into their group, they can.
Yeah, thank you. Just add, if I may, Chair, just when you talked about promoting what you did through magazines and schools, the Just Local magazines might be a really good shout for you. So Just Drayton, Just Sproston, because I think you could really sell what you're doing to really, really local communities. But keep up the good work.
That is exactly what we're planning on doing. And also, I think our newsletter goes out to Broadland District Council as well, and we'll be sending the newsletter to have a regular piece in all of those local newsletters.
Thank you very much. I've got Sue Lawn, then I'm going to speak, and then I've got Mike Pursehouse after that.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say welcome and thank you for taking the time to come and join us this evening. It's very much appreciated. And Zoom has certainly made life very different for all of us. I don't think things will ever go back to how they used to be. But the advantage of Zoom is, as you were saying, you can have one-to-one meetings and you can have them at fairly short notice as well, can't you? So that is something that's got to be beneficial in many ways to the younger people. And I did love your smile recipe. That's excellent. That's pretty good. So my main question, I think probably you've answered quite a bit of it, was how are you getting yourselves out there for the younger people to contact you in lockdown? It's great that you've come here this evening, but do you have access to school websites at all? Have you got yourselves promoting on the school websites? I don't think that I represent Thorpe St Andrew, and we have worked with you, and I think that we were hoping to work with you a bit more before we got to this lockdown. So I'm hoping that will then pick up again after we come out of this situation and throughout the summer. So happy to get bits and pieces onto our website as a parish council, but just wondering if the schools would welcome you on their websites at all.
I think so. My predecessor Emma, I believe, did some advertisement in schools, and I think we've actually got one person here today that came from within a school and was recruited during COVID. So I think that the information has got out there. It depends on the school itself and whether we've worked with them or. But if it's not appeared in a school yet, then I can work with whoever that is to get them on the website. So yeah, we would normally be consulting young people at the moment. Obviously, we can't do that, so we just try and find different ways in which to get the message out there. A lot of that is my job as well, and so I'll be doing that. The bits that young people do a lot of is social media and recruiting friends and people that they know. That's been a really positive thing that we've seen. So there's loads of different ways, but mainly I'm employed to do that job of recruiting young people, and we tend to bring young people along and they're the best recruiters. And I think there's a picture there where we've been in a school and some of the young people there selling what the YAB is, and that's worked really well in the past too.
That's great, thank you. And I guess, yes, social media will work better, for your side. But for the older generation that might look on the parish websites, by all means, if you contact Thorpe St Andrew Town Council, and they will be happy to put anything forward that you might want us to do, that would then pass your details on to maybe parents who can then pass it on to the younger generation. But once again, thank you for your time. It's really appreciated. It's good to see you all.
Thank you. Yes, and I'd just like to say thank you all for what you've said and the way you presented it. Izzy, in your part of the speech, you said about the projects that you've done, and you said especially around the anti-bullying project, and that went really, really well. Is there anything that you can give back to the counsellors as advice, maybe just to say what went well with the project, what can we learn from how you promoted the project, and what you thought went well?
Yeah, I think that project, it was really successful and it actually got people to really listen. I think one of the main things that was really good about it was from young people. And I know we ran a workshop and all the other YABs ran workshops and things. And I think that had a really big impact. I think especially when we were face to face, actually having, I think myself and some other young people shared experiences and things around bullying and stuff like that. And there was also like education and things. And I think that's one thing that really worked. Yeah, I think it was great because we had so much support around it as well. I think having 7 YABs and all of us kind of coming together to do this project, that's another thing that made it so successful. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Thank you. Mike Purcell.
Thank you, Chairman. I just from an officer's perspective, really, the Youth Advisory Board has been going for 5 or 6 years now, and I think one of the things that we try and do is try and engage with a wide section of the community, and we often miss out young people. And I think that the way the Youth Advisory Boards are set up, young commissioners are trained to help support that process. And I think that is something that as a council we need to champion more about, particularly what we're coming on to in the future, which is about policy formation. The opportunity to actually share that with young people early to get their views to then formulate that. Because I know we've got a very young cohort of councillors in Broadland, as we can see tonight, and I think that's really the chance to kind of bring that that young person voice in early doors, I think will be really beneficial for us in the future.
And thank you. Jamie?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to echo what everybody else has said and congratulate those that spoke and those that didn't on being here tonight, and such a professional and well delivered presentation. It really was informative, insightful, really great stuff. By way of introduction, my name's Jamie, but I'm one of the directors here, and I look after a number of different services, some of which fall under the remit of this panel and some of which don't, but tend to be more the people-y side of things. So things like housing benefits, housing standards, leisure centres in South Norfolk, not so much in Broadland, waste, and other such matters, but things that can all make a contribution in one way or another to people's well-being. And I kind of echo what Mike just said. Really, I think there is an opportunity, isn't there? And your initial question, I think, was, Colin, how can you get involved in some of the items that we're talking about and work alongside us? I think there are 2 things that I might, Chairman, if I may, suggest that might be worth exploring how we could get some insight from the younger people here today and in the wider network. I think one of the things that's perplexing us as a council and as a group of officers at the moment is what do we need to do as we come out of the COVID pandemic, the lockdown and the various restrictions? What is it that we can do to help our communities and our young people be as well as they can be to restore resilience? And I think, we've mentioned a few things, haven't we, around the economic downturn and the way that might affect young people, and it is affecting young people in a pretty severe way. But we've also made reference to mental health and the way that people feel in the current environment and climate. I think it's too easy for me and other officers and dare I say councillors to maybe kind of project our own experience. It's actually much more helpful to hear from other other different demographics. So I think there's an opportunity, perhaps, Chairman, to get involved in that piece of work. What does our recovery out of COVID look like? How can we get some different perspectives to inform our thinking and set our objectives in the relative near term? I also think on the forward plan, we've got a piece of work about revisiting our health and wellbeing strategy, which I think, Mike may tell me I'm wrong here, but I think it might be a piece of work we need to do this year to adopt as a policy from 22-23 onwards. Is that right? 22-23 onwards. So from next financial year, or the financial year after the one we're about to enter. And again, I think, you know, that's a piece of work whereby we're setting out our medium or long term ambitions around the work we could do around wellbeing, and it would be very, very remiss not to take that opportunity to listen to, again, some different perspectives. So I wonder, Chairman, in an effort to answer Colin's really sensible challenge to us of how to get involved, they strike me as two pieces of work where we might, if councillors are content, as officers seek to engage and take the valuable experience and viewpoints of those young people into our thinking and as part of our policy formation back through this panel.
Definitely, thank you. Thank you. I think that's everything. I don't think there's any more questions. No. So I'd like to thank you all for attending once again, and it's a really good speaking. You're more than welcome to remain for the next item on the agenda, and that. So the next item on the agenda is a future policy discussion for COVID recovery. Mike, are you presenting this, or is Kerry starting?
I'll start off, and then the guys will join in if I can share my screen again.
Okay.
Can you all see that, Chairman?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Right. Okay. We'll get there eventually. Here we are. Okay. So what we like to do, Chairman, is start off. I had a conversation with the Chairman and portfolio holder before tonight, and I guess the context for tonight. I think for me, policy committees, we tend to bring reports to sign off to policy committees. What we'd like to do is try and, yes, that's an important feature of the committee, but move away from just signing off to a policy committee that's actually developing policy areas in the first place. And I think the more we can do to inform the policy committee and the wellbeing panel about what's going on, will help then formulate ideas. That's an important feature of where we need to move to. And so what we're doing tonight is informing a panel of the current performance, the barriers and risks that we're facing for services around the kind of wellbeing agenda, to help really encourage that discussion around the kind of current and future policy and practice areas that the panel would like to see moving forward in the future. So we split that into three areas, which are my three service areas: communities and help hub, housing and benefits and housing standards. So we'll move forward with Kerry first, and communities and help hub. Kerry.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's pretty hard to follow, I think, after the YAB. I feel like they did such a good job. So we'll do our best not to bore you after that. But I'm going to talk briefly about our COVID response in the first instance. That's obviously been at the top of everybody's list and what we've really been focusing on for the past few months, heading through a year now. So the most important things to kind of give you some information on. Please do just shout if I'm talking about something that you're either, you're less aware of. I appreciate this is our sort of day-to-day at the moment. I don't want to not give you enough information. In January, on January the 7th, we started our enhanced track and trace system, test and trace. So you'll be aware when somebody tests positive, they're encouraged to provide details of all of their contacts that may have been impacted by their positive test result. And people were receiving calls and things. From the 7th of January, a little bit more emphasis on that came down to us as a district. And we have a team of COVID support advisors, which were recruited at the back end of last year. Some of those have been siphoned off into a particular team who are doing this enhanced test and trace service. So essentially 7 days a week, we receive information about those locally who have tested positive or who are their contacts, and we make contact with that person or those people, those households. So the majority of those are doorstep visits, but that's a combination of both telephone and doorstep visits, just to see that person understands what they need to be doing. That's first and foremost our aim, to make sure that people are complying with the guidance that's there to keep everybody safe. But secondly, and where our biggest impact probably is had, is to check that that person's able to isolate, that they have everything that they need, whether that be money because they can't work and they're self-employed and or they, you know, for whichever reason they're not going to be paid going to work, or they're impacted in some way, we'll help them out with that, right through to, do they need their dog walking? As a dog owner myself, the thought of having to isolate and not having anybody to walk my dog for 14 days is a massive problem. And these are the sort of problems that we're helping people to overcome. So we're getting between 190 and 260 of these a day. That's across Broadland and South Norfolk, and it is relatively evenly spread across the two. So that's a big piece of work for us at the moment. We saw numbers quite high at the beginning of that, because as you know, we've just gone into the lockdown that we're in now. Those have slightly petered off, but that's certainly not the sort of the direction we imagine we'll go in. This will be a piece of work that will continue for an incredibly long time. On Friday of this week, we've got our first meeting with all the districts in Norfolk. Now that's up and running across the whole county. So it'll be interesting to see how the approach is being taken across the other 5 districts. 6 including South. Secondly, our work with mutual aid groups continues. I think that the stats I got yesterday said that of the requests for help that we get through to the hub, about 88% of those are going through to mutual aid groups, and that's just local people helping each other out. Prescription collection, dog walking, as I mentioned, collecting food, shopping, just doing those things to help each other in the local community is providing the kind of backbone of that stuff that is needed during the pandemic. And I can't emphasize enough how important that's been to our response. The Help Hub is open. It's open 7 days a week, and it is open till 10 p.m. So we are customer facing and accessible for a big proportion of the week. At the weekend, that's 10 till 4. That allows for us to provide emergency food parcels and that sort of thing at the weekend. It also allows us to answer quite a lot of calls about council tax. Not always helpful to people to say that we're not experts in that, but they're still speaking to a person. It makes them happy. But obviously our first and foremost is to assist anybody that's in urgent need. Another big piece of work at the moment that's going on is our work around hospital discharge. It'll come as no surprise to you to know that the hospitals are busy, and the really important thing is that we move people through that hospital as quickly as possible and get them out into suitable accommodation. We have had a district direct project in place for a couple of years now, and that's fabulous. We've now got funding for that on an ongoing basis, which is quite a change from what we've been used to recently over since it began, really, where we've had quite short-term funding. So job adverts are now out for those, and they will hopefully be filled at the earliest opportunity. But what we've also managed to secure is some additional funding for extra posts to offer a slightly enhanced version of that service, just to move people through hospital as quickly as we possibly can. We imagine that this is going to become sort of a blueprint for what we think that service can become in the future, and how we anticipate that we can further support people to move quickly, because with or without COVID, we don't want people in hospital for any longer than they need to be. So that service will start. It won't start because it's already started, but we'll have sort of a kickstart of it next Monday, the 8th of February, just to remind the hospital staff that the service is there, who those new people are, and how that service will continue to grow. Some officers from my department, from my team, will be there, and also from Kevin Philcox's team as well, because across the two, they provide the sort of breadth of information that's required to get somebody out of hospital. Richard's team will also assist with that kind of homelessness element and the support that's required there. 2 other bits and pieces that we're doing sort of in the background is to support vaccination centres where they need volunteers. We had a request from Hoverton for some volunteers, and At one point, I did think the lady might get sick of me sending volunteers to her, but she's really pleased to keep receiving them. We've managed to provide a heck of a lot of volunteers to those mutual aid groups to help out at those centres. And for anyone who's been to a vaccination centre, you'll know that they cannot operate without the support of people managing the car park. Because if ever there's a place more dangerous, I'm not sure what it is than sort of those car parks being as full as they are at the moment and the management that's required. So from that to getting people in and helping them along the way, those volunteers are doing an incredible job. And finally, around COVID is the stuff around food demand. We're not seeing huge amounts like we did in the first lockdown, where people were completely without food because the supermarket system has sorted itself out and is now much more accessible. And also people have managed to find local people to do their shopping for them, or whatever it might be. Those hangovers from last summer are still there. I think that's it on COVID. In terms of kind of big projects that are happening, they often link back to COVID, so I'm going to keep saying the word a million times. But the employment project that is just off the ground, Work for All, is now taking referrals. It's a partnership with a job centre. And that's really supporting customers who've been recently made unemployed, particularly those that have unfortunately lost their jobs because of the pandemic. So they'll be worked with to look at how can they get back? Is it that they need to do something completely different? Has that sector kind of not got anything available to them at the moment? Is there something else they could be doing? There's all sorts of bits and pieces that are being done to support those people back into work. We've also been successful in getting some money from Sport England with Active Norfolk, in partnership with them, to build some active at home packs, which we'll be distributing to residents all across the district, which will encourage greater levels of physical movement within the home and kind of in that lockdown setting to keep people moving, because we know that keeping moving is important, but particularly at the moment where people are much more sedentary and greater at risk of actually catching COVID. We've also recently launched the Community at Heart Lottery. That's due its first draw fairly soon, but ticket sales for that are going incredibly well. And at a time where groups are unable to raise money through their normal means, this gives them another opportunity to do that. Obviously, the lottery wasn't designed as a response to COVID, but as luck would have it, that's been a real benefit at the moment as a way to get people some funding that they wouldn't have previously accessed. Next slide, please, Mike. Broadly Active, you'll all be really aware of Broadly Active. We have somehow managed to get new referrals to this service despite the kind of in and out of lockdown and what have you that we've had. But the sessions have been online or by phone or whatever it needs to be to support that person to get the physical activity that they're going to need to help their health and well-being. But alongside that, the team have launched Broadly Brew. I find that quite hard to say, but it's a weekly virtual social gathering for people to come together. We've just heard from the young people how important it is to get people talking to one another, whether that be over Zoom or however that might be. But this has been incredibly helpful, and I think they're really enjoying it. Going to the other end of the spectrum, talking about tots to teens, we've obviously had to make a decision every holiday to not run the sessions for tots to teens because of safety. But what those regular participants have received is a pack from us to give them some activities, give them some new ideas. I think parents are desperate for new things they can do, and we'll be providing those in the February half term as well. And the last one from me, we've talked about mutual aid groups, and I've said about how amazing they've been. We continue to support them. Once a month, we have a community links meeting where we get all of those mutual aid groups together from both across Broadland and South Norfolk, and they come together to talk about the good work that they're doing and work, learning from each other, talking about training that they might receive as a collective, and for example, over Christmas, they all made packs that went out to vulnerable people that needed them. So they're being incredibly proactive. And we want to harness that and keep it going long beyond this pandemic. And one of the ways that the group are looking to do that is to set themselves up as a community interest organisation and potentially later into a community interest company so that they can access additional funding. They're more of a formalised body and they can do so much more as a collective than they can as individual groups. They will, of course, maintain their their localized support system. None of this, none of community links or any of the stuff that they're doing is about making them all the same, because that's not how people operate. What you might need in Aylsham is different to what you might need in Acle, and then in much smaller villages. So they continue to have their individual outlook on what they're doing. And then finally, something that we're looking at, I'm keen to get your views on with an aspiration that we might be able to take this to Cabinet, is about building on the community connector model that we've seen a real success with during the pandemic and beyond that as well. This is an opportunity to have some officers who are really connected with local people. They understand what groups are there, they understand what support is there, and they're able to really promote those help hub messages and get out there and spread the word. We think we have got some external funding that we're hoping that we'll be able to use for this, but we're keen to have a conversation. And I just wanted to finally draw your attention to this graph, which identifies social prescribing. For those who aren't aware, social prescribing is a model that we know is particularly successful in South Norfolk using the community connectors. And that's where they're placed within GP surgeries to pick up any issues that aren't medical. There is a service for that in Broadland, and that's currently delivered by the voluntary sector. This just highlights the difference in the level of service that we're receiving from those. So we've mapped out surgeries of similar size and areas which are quite similar to each other. So Drayton and Wyndham, for example, you can see the huge amount of difference between the cases that the social prescribing services are seeing, and we're just as a team keen that we do something to try and address that balance, because we don't believe that these numbers should be so low in the Broadland area of people that are accessing support. I would just say that the community connector model in Broadland is not comparable to the one in South Norfolk. The one in Broadland is about getting out there and seeing people, but not within the GP setting, because that service already exists through the voluntary sector. But it's certainly that the basis of what they do and how they operate is certainly something that would be beneficial in Broadland, and we've seen that, as I said, in the last few months. I think that's everything. Sorry I've had so much to say.
Chairman, I can't see if there's anyone questions, etc. I wouldn't mind if you wouldn't mind doing that bit.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question, please. Hello.
Sorry, yeah, Chairman. Sorry, I can't see anyone. Would you mind?
Yeah, I would, please.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, on the issue of COVID and the vaccination program is now going extremely well, but clearly amongst certain elements of the population, there's a reluctance to accept the offer to be vaccinated. Particularly true of ethnic minorities, where the take-up is something in the region of 50. And clearly, I think the message needs to be got across to all concerned that it is really in everyone's best interest to have a vaccination. And I wonder what is being currently done to encourage people to take up these offers. Because clearly for getting rid of the virus, eventually it's essential that this should be undertaken.
You happy for me to answer that, Mike?
Yeah, Kerry, do you want to?
So take up of the vaccination is incredibly important, and we are working with a huge number of partners at the moment to ensure that the right messages are going out to people, that people are being encouraged to take up that vaccination, and to see what those barriers people might face are. Until we understand what it is that might put somebody off of having a vaccination, then it's difficult to know where we might be able to assist them. But we're certainly working with CCG, with voluntary sector organisations. The list is literally endless as to the number of people that are working on this. So absolutely the priority is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. Where people have got barriers to the vaccination because of transport, the team are able to help them out with that on a really practical kind of level. So we're absolutely here to support people to get it. And there's things like Mythbusters and stuff that are in existence that we share. So huge amounts of work are being done to ensure that people are getting the vaccination.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. I have 3 people wish to speak. I've got Fran, Wymark, then Councillor Neeson, and then Councillor Lorne.
Thank you, Chairman. There's only a couple of things I wanted to ask about. Really, is obviously I'm really pleased about so much of what we're doing. I mean, I think we're doing a fantastic job in so many areas. I just wonder about work for all. Obviously, we're working with DWP, the job centre. Sorry, but I mean, what more do you think we could do as a council, Kerry? Is there anything you think we could do, whether it be short term or long term, really, particularly with the additional sort of COVID money we've got? Is there anything we could do with that? Just any thoughts yourself or anyone else might have, actually, really. But also as well, I thought it was really quite stark, really, when we look at the community connectors. Particularly, you looked at one that you highlighted, but it was one of the biggest disparities, really, in many ways, was the Drayton and Wymondham. You've got a sort of 25 people in Drayton and 350 people in Wymondham who are being referred through to social prescribing. Now, I know in my area, in the Wroxham ward, many people in the Wroxham ward actually go to Hovton and Wroxham medical practice. And there, I believe that they've actually got social prescribers, because I know some people have been referred on to get support. And I just thought, there is a real disparity, but it's one of those things that we can't probably put a cost on, but I mean, we probably can put a cost in well-being, because dare I say, if people are supported through social prescribing, there's probably a knock-on effect on the cost to the health service. So, I mean, have we got any figures around that, just to show how much of a benefit social prescribing is, one, to the individual, but two, I'm not sorry, Karen, putting on the spot, but I don't expect you to pull a figure out right now. But I just wondered if we could sort of look at that, if we haven't already, if there's any figures around, what cost to say, one, to the individual, as I say, because there's obviously a real benefit there, which is difficult to quantify. But obviously, it's an assumption in some ways, but there might be a lot of, say diabetes, for instance. We know that diabetes can be cured, or some types of, by exercise, by reducing weight, etc. And the cost to the health service must be absolutely phenomenal. So something like social prescribing, in someone like in that instance, could cost an enormous amount, save an enormous amount of money, but also save an enormous amount of angst to that individual too.
You've asked the $1 million question, really. There,
Sorry, Kerry.
I've been part of the cult of social prescribing for years now, way before it was cool, and ever since those times, some people have been trying to quantify what the financial benefit of it might be to the NHS, and I could bore you to tears with endless kind of bits of research about what is out there and what the impact is. There's now, there's so many social prescribing networks, and we've got Julie working on kind of a big project on it nationally. The evidence is clear that it works, that anecdotally we know that less people are using services, GPs love it, nurses love it, but ever getting that definitive answer as to what it saves is near on impossible. But without question, nationally it is recognised that this works. We know this works. We know that it takes people away from those services that are so overrun. And it has huge benefits. But I wish I could tell you that for every £1 spent, it saves this much in the NHS, but I just can't. And the day that I can, I'll be a very happy woman. And I've forgotten what your first question was now. I got so into this.
Sorry, the first one was around work for all.
Yes.
I mean, what more could we do as a council? Say either short term with COVID money or particularly longer term. Mike's got his hand up.
Mike's put his hand up. He's in for this one.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I think there's two elements for us. Is one is about that cohort of people who have been freshly furloughed or made redundant. These are people who aren't traditionally in our benefit systems. They just come on by default. How can we divert them off very quickly? And what we're beginning to find is a range of people who have perhaps been in retail or hospitality all their lives, haven't necessarily they've got skills, customer service skills, but haven't necessarily got the wherewithal to think about how those skills are transferable for different jobs. A lot of people have had jobs, permanent jobs for life. Actually, there's a whole different economy now around, agency, temporary staff, which may well be a benefit. So one is one element for us, I think, is how do we ramp up that support for individuals, particularly those who are at risk of losing their home as well, which is obviously a huge cost to the council. How can we reskill, retrain really quickly into the kind of jobs that are available? So we're doing some work on that, which will come back to the Wellbeing panel very soon. So I feel as though we need to be ready for April, May time for this. And then the other side the council needs to look at, which I'm working with TIG is how do we stimulate the economy? Because it's all very well bringing people to the job market, but there's no jobs there. So we need to stimulate the economy, we need to get it moving, but we also need to understand what sort of jobs are out there and what sort of jobs are going to help pull us out of the economy in future. So I'd be very interested in exploring ideas, and that may well be an informal committee that we have just to kind of test some of that stuff before we bring it back. But I think there's a lot of thinking to go through, which we need to do.
Thank you, Mike. I think next was Councillor Neeson. After that, I had Councillor Lawn. I picked up Adrian, wanted to question. And then also just wanted to give the opportunity after that. Did anybody from the YAB just want to ask a question on this, or? I'll take that as a no. Okay. So Councillor Neeson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for that presentation. It was really interesting. One of the things that I've obviously been concerned about, as I imagine lots of other people have been especially during the COVID crisis, is the issue around social isolation, and also how this has led to the loss of some of the community resources in our in Broadland. An example I'll give, just because I know of it, is in Heavenham, which is my ward. They had a long-standing club called the Laurel Club, which was like a lunch and meeting club for local older people, and it was just run as a voluntary arrangement in the local community. Unfortunately, during COVID, obviously that had to stop meeting physically because of the restrictions. And a lot of the people who attended that, because of maybe their age and not having access to IT, weren't even able to attend the groups via Zoom or any other form of meeting. As a result of this, the person who ran the Laurel Club has actually now said that they're winding it up and it's no longer going to run, which is a real tragedy for the village and the local area. And one of the things I was wondering when you were talking about your big network of COVID volunteers, because obviously we know that a lot of volunteers who hadn't even been volunteers before have come forward during this the past few months and have really taken on lots of new roles and done their bit for their area, which has been brilliant. And I'm just wondering, about, you were saying about how you're hoping to harness those volunteers for future projects, but just wondering sort of how you're going to target them towards projects. So for instance, if a club in a village is having to end because of the issues that have led to it. It isn't about finances or anything like that. It's purely about the practicalities and about people being able to access. How quickly are you able to get local volunteers targeted to try and resurrect something like that? Is that something? Do you have specifics, for instance, on what you're going to do with the volunteers, or can we put requests in? Is what I was getting to.
You've touched on my favourite topic to talk about. So it's so sad to hear that we might lose groups, and I can't. You hit the nail on the head when you said that actually a lot of the support that people need isn't financial. It's actually people. skills, and you know, you guys as members, you have funding that's available, but so often when a group comes to you, what they actually end up receiving is, yes, a little bit of money, but also a little bit of help and advice. So what I would say is, if you're coming across those groups, you know anyone else that is, please encourage them to get in touch with our team, because Matt and Dan, the communities officers, this is their bread and butter. And
Brilliant, thank you.
They're there to support those groups. On to the second point, just about people who are volunteering now. I say it all the time, and I'm like a broken record. People will only volunteer and will only do stuff if they feel compelled to do it and they get something from it. So what we need to do when we think about the pandemic hopefully being behind us is talking to those people individually and asking them what motivates them, what is interesting to them. Because to some people, helping out a group like the one that you mentioned won't be interesting to them, but there will be someone for whom it will be. So it's about trying to find that person, the right place to go. Because they volunteered now doesn't mean they're going to want to take up a different volunteering opportunity in the future. So I'm always keen that we keep those people engaged and we talk to them about what is it that you want to do, and do you want to do it long term? Is one of the benefits of volunteering during COVID that it's short term? Is it because you're not at work at the moment? What are your drivers and what makes you want to do that? So what I would say is we won't have a blanket approach. We will try and identify what it is that motivates that person and then get them involved, because what would motivate me wouldn't motivate you, wouldn't motivate Mike or anybody else. So we've got to just think about that and tell people what's out there, because I don't think people do know. And I think that what COVID has done is identify an opportunity for volunteering, and a lot of those are people that didn't know that they could do other stuff in the first place. So long term, we've got loads of work to do. I think there's a whole cohort of people that have realised they get that warm fuzzy feeling when they help out and when they do something. So try and keep them doing that, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah, that's great, thanks. And I will actually contact the communities officers after you mentioned that. That's great, thank you.
Yeah, please do. And we talk all the time about giving groups money, but so many of them don't need any.
Yeah, exactly. They don't need money. I mean, there was part of me kind of thought, I'll just go down there and do it myself. Yeah, but which is fine. And I but it's about getting other people involved as well. That's the hard bit. But obviously that's where you're the experts, not me. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Does that just on that? Does that local group have access to Facebook? Do they know that there's a local Facebook likely in that area where they could put a post on and contact a lot of people? That's the sort of advice people often need.
I think part of it has been that it's been a group of older people have run it, and and it's kind of bobbed along nicely when everything was fine up until COVID, and then people haven't known what to do with it. And I think part of it, not for everyone obviously, but for some people, has been about being able to remain sort of in social contact with people during the lockdown, because a lot of people haven't been able to, just because of not being able to use or have access to IT and that type of thing. So for as much as there are lots of older people now who do use it, there's still a lot of people who don't.
There are, and there's lots of other ways to contact people. So we'll definitely, but
Thank
definitely,
you.
cool. Thank you.
Lovely.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you. Sue Lorne, you had a question on social prescribing.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Kay, for the presentation. It's really good to see, and everyone's doing a fantastic job. So it's really appreciated. So I'd like everybody to know that. And I'm glad that you're going to have a bank of volunteers up your sleeve.
Well, we hope so. We hope they'll cling on and they'll still do stuff.
But I was thinking as we were talking that, I'm quite sure we will. Our communities will be so different after this. I think that people who would normally have stayed indoors and not necessarily got involved in their community have actually taken the leap, and they will be doing it now. So I'm hoping that we will see lots more people volunteering and being part of their community groups. Because once you've been in the community, like we all have, once you've been in that community and you're doing something, it's really hard to step back and just leave it be. So it'll be good if we have got a bank that people know that we've got the information and can go to. So that's really good. I'm really pleased you're doing that. But my question is in relation to the social prescribing. The comparisons are really quite concerning. Can you just explain something? Why is there such a huge difference? I know that Fran said quite a bit about it, but I just don't understand why Broadland is just so different to, I thought we were doing okay.
They're very different. So going back in time, when social prescribing was commissioned, it was on a county-wide basis, but different people got different contracts in different areas. And the Broadland area is covered, as I said, by a consortium of voluntary sector partners that covers both Norwich and Broadland. And I think that to kind of speak openly, I think that a lot of that attention, it tends to be more city focused, and there perhaps hasn't been the same emphasis on trying to promote that service. Some of the key differences that I see, just as a person that's been involved with it for a long time, is that the services that really work, social prescribing, where it works really well, is where that social prescriber is embedded within the surgery themselves, so they get to know them. If you're a GP, you're busy, you've got 1,000,001 things to think about. You want to be able to just think, I can pass this person to Jane, or I can pass this person to so and so very easily, and it helps if you're more engaged with that person. And the services across the whole county, which have been really successful, and you've seen the numbers that we've got comparatively across the 2 districts, are where that's happening, and I think that makes a big difference. And I don't want to sit here and slate another service, but I just want to draw to your attention the differences between the 2, because it's a concern that our residents perhaps aren't getting the sort of level of service that we might hope for. Obviously that's guided by external factors in many ways, how these services are commissioned. And when I talk about that original model, a lot's changed in terms of how those services are funded now. It really has shifted. When we first started social prescribing years ago, I mean, we made a service out of just bits of money from all over the place just to see if it worked. To what we've now got to, which is a service largely funded by primary care networks, as the NHS have sort of cottoned on to this. And as time goes on, I think we'll start to see those changes. But we as a council are trying to be more engaged with GP surgeries now. Ultimately, the help hub's still there, all those services are still there, and we want GPs to know about it. And if in the future we can move to a system whereby we are commissioned to have social prescribers that we can put into GP surgeries, then I think we'll do a really good job at that. But for the time being, I think our emphasis is on trying to engage those voluntary sector partners to help them understand how they can be better placed and better understood as a service, because I think unless something's there in front of people, they don't remember it.
No.
Yeah, Chair, may I just add to Kerry's point? Sorry, Councillor Lorne.
No, you're absolutely fine.
I think everything that Kerry said, I agree, I echo. I think there's a moral and a financial argument for why we need to get more involved in this area of business. I mean, obviously it's discretionary. It's not something we as a council are funded to do. I think morally, I think you guys have already alluded to it. I'd maybe be a bit more bold and say it's a little unfair, isn't it, that some of our residents are not getting the service that other residents are. And I think Kerry's being very polite in saying that the consortia are a little dominated in their thinking by the city and the regions around the city. I would maybe say that they're almost completely ignoring the rural parts of our districts, and I think that's just fairly unhelpful. But I think financially there is a strong argument for why these sorts of services make sense. There's such a degree of alignment between the reasons why people go to GPs for non-clinical things and the sorts of services that we do provide as a district council, statutorily or discretionary. A lot of it's about people's welfare, their housing setup, their wider environment. They're things that we are best placed to affect. And the financial argument is that the quicker that we can get to people who are clearly in some degree of distress and need, such that they felt the need to go to the GP surgery to find out their problems and help solve their problems for them, the less of a crisis they end up getting into, which invariably is a crisis that we as a district authority have to get involved with at some point and pick up. And invariably that crisis financially costs more than the preventative mechanism that we have at our disposal would have cost. So, I don't think we've worked the sums necessarily just for social prescribing, but there is a business case here to be constructed, which I know Mike and Kerry are working hard at, which says something like, for every pound we invest as a district council in a service like social prescribing, we will see a benefit in not having a demand through to some of our housing and benefits statutory functions. it's morally the right thing to do because we're helping people before they get to crisis point, but it financially also kind of stacks up too. So that's a piece of work that I know Mike and Kerry are looking at, and it's something we'll really be keen to bring back to you in due course.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to say, could we please, I was going to ask yourselves as officers, the portfolio holders and the chairman, is this something that we can bring back to this panel as soon as possible? Something we need to review this. This is just, yeah. I'm really saddened that we're in this situation. I didn't realise that we were in this situation, and I would really appreciate it if we could maybe bring this back to the next meeting so that we can look at this a lot more deeper and see where we go to. I do appreciate, Mike, that there's a lot more work to be done to this. It's not something, that we're going to fix in 4, 6, 8 weeks time, but it would just be good if we could just start the process of bringing ourselves on track with others.
I think that's a definite, and I think that we're alluding to that later on in the presentation for the future work programme. So I think, that will definitely be picked up. If I may, Kerry, just one question, really, from what you were saying earlier, and then I will fetch Adrian in. I haven't forgotten you. You said that you'd picked up various pots of money to start this off. So was this sort of like an initiative that other people have taken and it's gone out wider, or is it only happening in our 2 areas? Or
no. I referred to being into social prescribing before it was cool, and to say that the first meeting I ever went to about social prescribing, to put it into perspective, was in London, and there was 12 of us in a room, and we sort of talked about this cool idea of social prescribing and what did it mean and how could we work with GP surgeries. And to be fair, some GP surgeries, particularly around the London area, have been doing this since the 80s. The next time I went to London about a conference, Prince Charles turned up. So it really escalated incredibly quickly in terms of its popularity on a national footing. So social prescribing is everywhere. And it's done in different ways in different places. And it's great to hear that as members, you're keen to explore the service that's being received in Broadland, which we as officers have had concerns about, but perhaps not been able to have this kind of open discussion about previously. So I'm really pleased that we're having this now and that we're talking about what the impact of it is on our residents, because yes, social prescribing has its own nuances in its different areas, but there shouldn't be this very distinct difference in services across the 2 districts. My humble opinion. So yeah, in answer to your question, when I sort of cobbled together some money, what I think was about 5 years ago now, probably getting on for, it was about trying out the idea, which at the time was incredibly new, but that's certainly not the case anymore.
Fantastic. Adrian, I'll fetch you in now.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of things for me. Just in terms of the comparison of numbers, and I get that Drayton, just using that example of Drayton and Wymondham is very, very different in its numbers. I think 25 to 350. I would just caution that Drayton has a population of about 5,500 people, and Wymondham has about 14,500, nearly 15,000. So it's probably 3 times the size. So we're not totally comparing apples with apples. And that's not me just defending Drayton as a Drayton member. It's just so we are comparing apples with apples. I just can't say, in terms of the help hub and support that Matt Allen has been given to Drayton especially, I think is fantastic. I just can't sing his praises and what the help hub's doing for the local community enough. I think it's brilliant. And I think what we've been talking around here is really, really good. I guess my challenge to you is are we shouting about it enough? And is it easy enough for people to find out what services are available? So, for example, if I want the help hub on the Broadland website, it's not great to find. And if I'm honest, it doesn't really tell me what the help hub does. So we've got all these great initiatives, and the social prescribing as well is, I know it's down to the doctors and GPs to do it, but do our residents even know that there are those services there? And can we just make it more easily accessible to them so that we can sing about what we're doing a bit more?
Yeah. quickly just on your point regarding the sizes of places. This was based on GP surgery size and its catchment area. So Drayton will cover a much bigger patch. I didn't make that clear, but it's absolutely one of the key aims for our team for 2021 is to help people understand that the Help Hub is there. We always use this phrase that you don't know what you need if you don't know what's there, or what you can access if you don't know what's there. And I think it's the case that in Broadland, people haven't known that the Help Hub's there. It's not been as customer facing as it could have been. And I think that that's something that 2021 will change, I really hope. Telling people what's there before they need that help is really important, because this is all about help as early as possible. So if you want to be telling people that the help is there when they're well, when they're healthy, when they've got everything, everything's fine, because the second that something changes for that person, that could be positive, it could be negative. Someone having a baby really changes somebody's life. It's a positive life experience, but it throws people into, who do I talk to? Where do I go? What services are available to me? If somebody passes away, you have those similar questions, but in not such a positive circumstance. And what we want people to know is that the help is there before they need it, so that the second that happens, they know where to come. So absolutely, we're starting a campaign of that this year, where to go when you need help. And I do think COVID has really helped us kind of push that message a little bit, but we could go much, much further with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I muted myself. Thanks very much. Mike, Councillor Neeson's asked in the chat if we could email the PowerPoint around afterwards, if that's okay.
Yes, Chairman. All the PowerPoints from tonight will go to Dawn, and obviously they can go around and they can go on as part of the minutes if that's appropriate as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And unless there are any other questions, because I know we have still got quite a bit to get through, so I'd like to move on if possible. Thank you very much, Kerry. That was brilliant.
Thank you all.
Okay, we'll now move on to housing benefits, and Richard.
Yep, thanks very much, Mike. Go to the first slide if you wouldn't mind. Thank you very much. So I'll try and follow Kerry the best I can there, because that was a very good run through of everything. So it's not, I often feel like my services aren't as exciting as Kerry, but I'll try my best to make them as exciting as possible. So the first thing I wanted to run through was COVID response, how the team are helping people who are being impacted by COVID. The big thing we're working on right now is the £500 track and trace isolation payment, which I'm sure many of you have heard in the news and in the press. This is a payment which we give to people. There's two pots, but basically you get £500 to make sure that you can stay at home for the period of time that you need to isolate, once you've been either informed through track and trace or through the app. We've been a big part of how this has been developed. Me and Lindsay sit alongside Jamie, sit on the national development kind of board. It's making it sound more formal than it is, but we've really pushed hard to make sure that we widen the scope and push for more funding the best we can. This money is central government money, but we are looking at utilising some of the potentially county council funding that has not been confirmed, but to widen the scope as much as possible. We are also looking, we've widened it out a little bit to run inside the Joseph Rowntree Fund income levels. That means you've got two pots here. Sorry to go into too much detail, but you've got two pots. If someone's on welfare benefits, they just get the money. So that's a very small amount of people who are on welfare benefits, but are still working. And if they need to isolate, they just get the money. So you could be working 2 hours a week and you would still get the money because you can't work for those 2 hours. And it's a standard amount of £500. On top of that, you then have the a discretionary pot, and that falls down to the districts to decide what level of income is a suitable amount to whereby people should have some kind of buffer if they did ever have to lose an element of income. The levels we've gone for is a household income of 37,400 for a family and 19,200 for a single person. So that's their annual income. If anyone is above that, unfortunately, we're unable to assist them through this fund, but we can through the next fund, which I'll talk about in a sec. So they're nationally recognised income and amounts. Whilst we would like to widen that to be bigger and bigger, we have to be careful, because even if you go up £1,000 on the household income, all of a sudden you're including tens of thousands of pounds, 10,000 of people who could potentially be eligible. But this is a massively important part of trying to push down the frequency of COVID within our area, because if people can afford to isolate, then they're more likely to do so. If people can't afford to isolate, then they simply won't, or they will isolate. They'll pay for the key things that they need, such as food, but they won't pay for their rent. So all you're doing is pushing back a problem, because then they'll get into rent arrears, and then they'll need support from my team. Okay, so the next one on there is a COVID-19 hardship fund. We kind of created this back in March. To date, we've spent £43,970. This was created really to help people who were transitioning from whatever income they had, whether that be earned income or working tax credits, child tax credits, anything, when they transitioned over to universal credit. Now, there was a lot of press around the fact that there's going to be a forced migration where everybody's going to have to be forced over to universal credit. COVID has pretty much done that for everybody in one foul swoop, because lots of people have had substantial changes of circumstances and therefore moved over to universal credit. That fund has really been seen as when we're sitting there thinking this person needs help and we have no other means of helping them, that's when that fund becomes really useful, and we want to extend that fund to next year. Next thing is we've got a ever-growing team trying to deal with the COVID demand. With an ever-growing team, we need to make sure that people are going through to the right people straight away on the first when they call us up. So we're having a bit more of a suitable phone system, so that if someone's just ringing about housing register query, they can quickly go through to someone who can deal with the housing register, and they're not having to wait on the phone while we're dealing with a lengthy homelessness issue on another line. So it just means that the right people are getting through to the service a bit quicker. Another thing we've just done very recently is a £250 heating payment. Now, we prepared the list of those who are clinically vulnerable and having to isolate, with the people who have previously contacted the Warm Homes team to say that they're really struggling to pay their heating costs. Put those two lists together, we found 99 people in both districts who would potentially be struggling. We've sent them all a letter to say, if you are struggling and you need some extra support, we will be able to give you a payment a flat payment of £250 to be able to help to pay your heating. The main reason we've done that is with people being home more, they're going to have to heat their house more, and if they had a poor heating system to begin with, that's going to cost them even more money to heat their house. So to be able to give them a helping hand ensures that they can keep heating their house. Temporary accommodation is at a sensible level. It's not pre-COVID levels. I'm not going to say it's back to there. We're still seeing, with every lockdown, it seems to be that people who weren't anticipating ever being homeless are all of a sudden homeless in a matter of a couple of days. And we see the sudden influx of immediate homelessness. Now, at the beginning, it was sofa surfers. After that, it was those who were more, they had higher support needs and a bit more chaotic, largely due to the fact that they couldn't stay in the properties in which they were beforehand because of that chaotic nature. Now we're seeing family breakdowns. We knew that with a sustained period of time where they've had to live in close quarters, that family breakdowns were about to happen. And what we see happening is, as soon as Mr. Johnson is on the TV saying we're going into a lockdown, our phone calls go up because families are thinking, I can't do this again. I can't stay tied together again for a long period of time. And as you can see, the phone calls kind of replicate that. As soon as post-Christmas came in, they flew up. Okay, and what I see as amazing here is the benefit phone calls are below your housing phone calls, and I'm so used to seeing it the other way around. So it really does show the demand in the housing is sitting in the housing. Next slide, please, Mike. Right, just wanted to go through a few more figures. The advantage of my service is we're audited and we have to provide government feedback all the time, so we're constantly recording our performance. As you can see, the benefit speed of process, I would love to say it's because of me, but it's down to the team. I have inherited an amazing team there, and they are absolutely cracking it. I don't know how they're keeping the days. I do know the team. We've got a lot of people in our service who, must be honest, their partners are furloughed. They're facing redundancies, and they can't go anywhere, and they're willing to do extra time. Central government are giving us more money to be able to help with extra burdens. I think it's only right and true that we give our members of staff who are facing difficulties ourselves the opportunity to do that extra time. From an operational manager point of view, you have immediately trained people who are quick at their job, who know their resident base, being able to do more work and meet the needs of our residents. I put the customer base one at the bottom because for years we have seen that customer base slowly come down. So that yellow graph on the bottom left-hand side, the yellow bars, normally for years and years we have seen that slowly trickle down. As you can see, it's gone up and it's staying up because we're seeing more people out there having to claim benefits. The housing register one at the bottom, that is a point of fiction because we are doing our housing register review. So we've done a lot of work to get the right people as part of the best in class, and I'll come on to that on the last slide. We've done a lot of work to get only the people who need housing service on that register. And I honestly believe we're going to go from it was around 2,800 down to around 800, 850. But every one of those 850 are going to need housing. And all those other ones which were on there were kind of on there, but didn't need to be on there. On the right-hand side, I wanted to put this on here because where is the benefit? The benefit team were really amazing, and the SNC benefit service has learnt off the BDC benefit service. It wasn't so much the case in the housing side, and I've had to do a huge amount of work to get that knowledge base in there to make sure that we're suitably legally compliant. That started to show dividends. It dropped down a little bit in December, but I'm confident that line is going to get closer and closer. And then as we become one team from April, we're going to have the knowledge base in there to be able to really deliver on the best in class. Bottom right hand corner, you can see that we saw that massive peak in July, but it's back down. But those figures would normally be around 40 odd, and still we're seeing them in the 67, 70s. And in December we see it less. I guarantee you in January that's going to peak again, because people, despite COVID, people do just try and stay together for Christmas, and then in January everything unfortunately wakes up. Next slide, please, Mike. Okay, I won't go over the performance much more, but just to make note, we've seen a 90% increase in new claims for council tax support. Just on that note, a lot of the changes we made for the council tax reduction scheme last year has really proved to be, you know how normally you say hindsight is a wonderful thing. We have really, I would like to say it was planned, but we lucked out on addressing the changes that we did when we did, because it's allowed us to administer the new claims so much more efficiently than we ever would have dreamed of. Basically, anybody who claims any kind of universal credit is automatically put through to us, so we can consider them for council tax support. Provided they click on a box on their screen to say that they want to notify us, that's enough to do a council tax support, and then we can make sure that they're getting the adequate help that they need. Next slide, please, Mike. Right, I thought I'd just a few of you were involved in the best in class housing rollout, and every one of you were involved in signing it out in full council. I just didn't want you to think that you've got sign off and we've just gone around and twiddled our thumbs. A humongous amount of work has gone to making sure that we can deliver this in time for April 2021. We've designed a new system to make sure it's what we feel is going to be really good for and really available to our residents, to make sure that the online service, which is backed up by all the traditional services and the traditional routes in there, is kind of the best, is a really good place to go. So we do encourage people to go onto the online service. We are going to have one team, but I know I don't hope it doesn't get me in trouble. Corporately, we are one team, but until you're on one system, it becomes really hard to be that one team. We are going to be on one system. We are going to be one team. You can call up and you will get through to someone who is traditionally known as an SNC worker, but it won't matter to you because all the phones will go through to the same group of people, ensuring that, whereas at the moment we have two teams of 7 HSOs, 7 or 8 HSOs, if a couple of people go off sick or they're on holiday, it decimates that team. If you go up to 17, 18 members of staff, a couple of people going off sick or going on leave doesn't really make that as big a difference. So that resilience is really going to pay dividends. Housing register review underway. I spoke about it a little bit just to let you know. The low bands have all gone out, the medium bands have all gone out, and we're starting to get those returned now. The high bands are going out next week. So when I talk about these low, medium and high band going out, what I mean is we are writing to every single person who is on the register and asking for them for their up-to-date information. And if they return the documents, they're going on the register. Those people who don't return the documents and they get given a period of 2 weeks, obviously if they return it after that period of time, it's not, we'll still let them on the register. It's just that we wanted to focus people's minds. But anyone who returns it will go onto the register, but it will be a clearer reflection of the housing demand on our district. And I think that's me, isn't it, Mike?
That's
questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any members?
I told you it wasn't exciting, these Kerrys.
Well, no, that's not true, Richard. That was very exciting. I mean, my thing, I think I wanted to reiterate the bit around the £500 support. And, you know, while it may seem that this is a large cost, it's actually quite a saving because of the way that the ongoing problems that are created if we don't provide that level of support would far outweigh the £500 that it's actually costing in the initial place. Because, you know, to get the cases involved for people, it's far more than that £500. So it's a really, really good benefit, well divided. So.
I just want to, one thing I didn't say is we're getting that money out in a minimum of 3 days. So if someone applies, goes online, applies and attaches their payslip, and it's on the day in which, because the payments run on a Monday and a Thursday. Oh no, Tuesday and a Friday. It's Monday and a Thursday, Mike, isn't it? If we get that, if we get an application on the Thursday and it's before the payment run, they will get that money on the same day in which they apply. We will make sure that happens.
Thank you. So I didn't mean to cut you off earlier. I
apologize. No, you're absolutely fine. I wasn't sure whether you could hear me or not. It's fine. I don't have a question, Richard. I just want to make a comment. And it's not that your presentations are boring. They're very, very interesting. They're very informative. And the team has done a fantastic job. The fact that you've got all of those letters sent out already, everything is going to go on time. You know, we said April 2021. I vaguely remember you saying, I'm not so sure that we can do that.
Yes.
but you have, and that's absolutely fantastic. The whole team is absolutely brilliant. Seriously, it's such good news to sit and listen to what you have to say. So just wanted to say it's never boring, but thank you very much.
That's okay. Thank you. I shouldn't have possibly said that, but and I also want to say we need to extend the thanks wider, because the reason we're hitting this is redeployment. From services who aren't as busy as they otherwise would be.
Yes.
They've come and helped us out. And I've got to say a big thank you to them as well to be able to do that. And some of them are showing quite an interest in the roles, and I imagine that they'll be looking to apply to them, which is going to be great because they're all trained up, ready to go. So yeah, it's a council team effort, I would say.
Yeah, perfect team. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Wymark.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to endorse what Sue's just said, really. I mean, it's a great effort, and it's a joint effort to get things where they are. Obviously, we've been through a very difficult period. As you said yourself, we've got more difficulties ahead, I'm sure, but we are in a good place, and with the new housing offer that we are putting together, we've put together, but we're just putting it in place. It will make life a lot easier for everybody and a lot more efficient. And Richard, don't do yourself down when you're saying sort of a minimum of 3 days. It was actually a maximum of 3 days before people got paid. All right.
Oh yes, a maximum. Sorry, that's what I meant. We will get the money out to them in
maximum
no more,
of 3 days.
Yeah.
So no, so yeah, I just wanted to correct you there. All right, okay, but well done.
Yeah, it's because I see days as how many days it's taken us to process. Yeah,
great. Thank you, Mike. Can we move on now?
Yeah, we'll just. There's only a few slides, Chairman, so we're nearly done. This is in terms of housing standards. So one of the issues that we know we've had for our COVID response, the vast majority of housing standards work with older people. They're more likely to be clinical or extremely vulnerable. So we've had some real issues in terms of the impact of delivery. With lockdowns, we've struggled to go in. Certainly on the first lockdown, this time we're able to go into people's properties, and as you know, with housing standards, it's looking about disabled facility grants. It's looking at a range of measures to keep people in their homes. So it's been really important that we actually go into someone's home to complete that assessment. That has been getting better, but we now have consent. We have to check for COVID, etc., and we have to ensure that people are out of the room, which isn't always easy. Particularly if you actually physically need them there to look at the shower or the toilet, etc. But we are getting there, and so we have seen an issue with disabled facility grants in terms of being spent. We're currently underspent where we normally would be. We've been given an additional 120,000, which I'll come on to in a bit. But the good news with that is we have now, it has to be spent at each end of financial year. We've been allowed to roll that over, so we can roll over any underspend, which is really good news. And we are using, and everyone tells me that old people can't use a computer and they can't use online. Well, actually that's wrong, and we're being flexible, and for those who can, then we have been using that online virtual appointment system, which has been working well, and it also trains older people up for that as well. I won't go through too many or too quickly of these because I'll send the presentation round. So we've got an assisted living target of 700 per year. You can see that we've managed to go back up in August when we came out of lockdown. October was a good month, but then obviously you've seen the lockdown trends have affected our ability to do that. But we are on a steady approach, and we think we're going to be on aim to help support 700 people this year. Supporting those at risk of fuel poverty, you'll know that our really effective Warm Homes Fund, which Broadland runs on behalf of Norfolk, that's going very well. We've been given an additional 2.4 million, which came to Cabinet a couple of weeks ago. We've now been given an additional 1.7 million as well to help carry that work on, which is really, really positive. And you can see there, and apologies for the colours, and particularly if you're colourblind, blue isn't a particularly good colour, but we tried to break down the Broadland numbers as well as all other areas as well. So you can see there that actually we are working well in Broadland as well as on behalf of the whole partnership for Norfolk. The first time installs, and I always find this amazing that first time installs of a heating system and how many people don't have a proper heating system in place. So these are people who may be on electric storage heating type stuff. So this is the first time installs. We've got a target, and we've already reached that target, which is really positive to be able to get that, because if I've lived in a house that doesn't have central heating, and by Jove, it's cold. One of the things that, and I will send round a bit more explanation of each of these, but looking with that additional 120,000 that we've been given for disabled facility grants, we're looking at different ways of working, and it's been quite a traditional approach over the last few years. So there's 8 schemes there which we're just trialing, just as an interim to help inform learning for when we bring a full review of DFGs and IHAT into the committee in April and May. But looking at the different ways that we can perhaps allocate that DFG spend, it's not just all about a level shower, it's not all about a toilet. Actually, there's a whole range of issues which prevent people from remaining independent at home. And including, as you can see, some of that kind of post-COVID syndrome, so people with mental health issues, but also that scheme 8 there, carer support facilities. You know, why aren't we looking about after those carers, which of course are fundamental. So these things, we're going out slightly on a limb, but within the regulations, but to try different stuff, and then hopefully that'll inform us of where we go in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Hey, Mike. Sorry, I left myself on mute. Fran, you've got your hand up.
Oh, sorry, that was a legacy hand, as you might say. But I just wanted to say the scheme there, the approach for the DFG, the 8 schemes. I actually sent information around to all the councillors, so they've already had that, so they will be able to see how that works. But I think it's really good that we can actually help support people. As Mike said, it is incredible in this day and age that some people don't have heating systems in their house, and anything we can do to help them. Obviously, once again, there's a knock-on effect. I'm sure some people turn up at GP surgeries now, it's because their house is damp and cold and whatever. And obviously, by putting in a heating system, we can probably take pressure off the GPs there. So, I mean, once again, going back to social prescribing, you know, if someone could have a word with somebody, they could probably tell us, and it would come back and on and on. So a lot of these things overlap with the other DFGs, as you say. So many things overlap. So I think it's just really important that we do this. And obviously, this is a good opportunity to test out the system, which I mean, Mike confirm, saying that the scheme hasn't changed. Well, the parameters haven't changed since 2009, which is quite incredible, really. Yeah, it's a good opportunity to look to see how we can do things better going forward. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else for Mike on that? No. Okay.
So thank you, Chair. Just a couple more slides there. So really, as we started off, I feel this has been quite a PowerPoint heavy presentation, but this new way of working, which I alluded to at the start, is actually letting the Wellbeing panel know what the service is going on, what are the issues there, and a discussion about that. A summary of kind of those areas, because where is the Wellbeing panel going to focus on in the future? So we've talked a lot around mental well-being, about housing, employment, domestic abuse has been in there, which is part of housing issues. But that kind of community development, lonely isolation, etc. Is this the what is resonating with members? Is this the type of stuff that you want us to focus on, and where are the areas that particularly resonate with you? And then just looking at starting to think about, I was talking with the chairman earlier about forward work plan. We've got some things on there that are already planned in for the policy committee and then cabinet. But looking at some of the delivery plan for next year, we've kind of started to bake in some of the thoughts about the stuff that we might like to bring back, or the committee might like to come back. Really, so I just wanted to leave it there, Chairman, for then finish off any discussion and certainly carry on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So does anybody have any questions on either of the two slides there? Sulon?
It's not necessarily a question, it's just a comment. No, I'm happy with all the projects that you've got on there, but where does that, the
social prescribing?
Yes. Where does that come into that?
So I'll add that on, Councillor Orne, as a project that we'll bring in and as part of the conversation tonight.
Yes, please, as soon as possible, please.
Yeah. And
okay.
Mike, sorry, just on the skills one, was that in quarter one next year, or is that in the early quarter of this year? Apologies, I know you.
Sorry, Chairman, I shouldn't have. Look at the skills. So that's 21, 22. So that's quarter one next year. So I mean, I and in fact, since I did this, I really would like something in place by April. So that's suggesting that'll be between April to July. That's kind of when we want to be launching it. I think we want to do the thinking before that.
I think that's where I was really coming from on that one. Just yeah, all the rest. Yeah, I mean, you know, the council tax assistance. I think Richard's helped with a lot of that. So yes, that will come through with the new system and everything else like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the skills and employment was in the delivery plan, and that was the kind of where we were thinking about. But actually, I think it's ramped up with the lockdown and stuff. So I think we can bring that forward, Chairman.
Chair, if I may, I think there's two aspects to that. One is about the immediate pressure of COVID and coming out of some of those cliff edges. But there's also a longer term conversation about what is our policy position around skills and gender going forward over the next few years. And I think we've got the opportunity to maybe reshape that agenda a little bit, and that maybe is a bit more of a slow burn conversation and we want to take our time with. So maybe there's kind of two angles to the conversation is all I'm suggesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the COVID effect everybody will perceive there to be, well, this is important, we must have this in place, but they will have different ideas around it. But I think with the end of the furlough assistance scheme in April, with what we already know, I think that for that parliament, there's an immediate need, and then there's the longer term strategy, and that's where I was just going to look at the health and wellbeing strategy being in quarter four. And I know it's a large piece of work, but whether that could also be brought forward just a bit, because the strategy will then lead into how we deal with everything else. I don't know whether but I'm happy for other people, if anyone perceives it differently.
I think the logic, Chair, is that we have an existing framework in place that is due for replacement at the end of next financial year. And of course, we can bring the work forwards, but we have an existing framework, if you like. I guess as well. A big part of our thinking will be informed by people's longer term well-being as a consequence of what we've just been through for the past year. And I'm not certain. I mean, it's not for me to predict what the future may hold, but it's many pandemics that we have experienced in history have gone through various waves. It's not unforeseeable that we'll see additional pressure from COVID throughout 21, 22 and the ongoing impacts of it. So we'll need to take stock at some point about what the long-term effects are, as well as the short-term actions we need to take. So it may be that we need to be quite fluid, perhaps, in the way that we think about that piece of work around health and wellbeing. Strategy.
I saw, Colin, you put a note in there. I mean, I did want to come on to you near at the end before you left, and because I'd like to thank you for coming in and what you've done. Obviously, part of our forward work plan, we would be really interested in the AB coming forward again to our meetings. Whether it's annually, 6 monthly, or however. But if you know what the work program is, and if it alludes to how your work program is and what you're going through with the YAB as well, that would be really helpful, because again we're then talking about the same sort of things at the same time, and we can get the different viewpoints from the youth as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously today was the first, well, maybe not the first time. I think some of them came before, but it's as much as where appropriate. I think the more they come, I'll meet them on Thursday or maybe next week, and we'll go over what was kind of said today, and kind of arrange conversations to to be had from their end too. So yeah, I think it could be as regular as the panel feels is necessary. And if an agenda item has got young people on it, then it's my job to make sure young people are there to input it. So if there's an agenda item, we'll be there. And if not, but we think young people's influence can be had on others, then again, I can facilitate that too. So
yeah, I think the thing is, I mean, well-being affects, every area affects the well-being of the youth. So it's almost every agenda item.
Yeah. You're right, definitely.
Fran, you have your hand up again, or is that from last time?
No. It was a new one. Thank you, thank you, Chairman. I'll put it down now while I think about it. There you go. No, I just wanted to echo what you said there. I mean, for instance, I'd like to thank Colin and obviously and all the young commissioners for coming along again. It was really useful. But for instance, one of the things we've been talking about on the Future Work programme was around skills and training, as we've said. And obviously, you've already got a commissioned service there. Was it Lola Stafford, you said, was commissioned for the careers Lola coaching?
Yeah.
So maybe it's something we could sort of mutually beneficial. We could sort of tap into something like that. I mean, that conversation could be useful for both of us, really. There's no point us reinventing the wheel. If you've got something which is working for young people, then why not sort of talk about how we can tap into that and maybe expand upon it? It's just a thought.
Yeah, with Lola Stafford are doing North Norfolk. So North Norfolk YAB also commissioned them to do the same. And I think the more we can link with our partners as a youth advisory board, but in particular our councils as well, then we can do that. And I think Broadland have piloted a careers. They have a degree in careers coaching. They're doing one-to-ones on Zoom, and that's been really successful. So I think where we can link together and offer that support, then we can have those conversations and see how we can. Broadland District Council have commissioned the Youth Advisory Board in Broadland to do similar things. So if you wanted to look at a district council that had worked really closely with the Youth Advisory Board, then we can have that conversation on how it logistically works and any kind of concerns and challenges from their side that might be worth talking with some of your colleagues. But yeah, we throughout all of those plans, I really do think the young people in Broadland, I've been amazed in the last few weeks. They are incredible. They really are on it. And Connor, who spoke today, it's only his second meeting. He came last night, his first meeting. He's in year 7.
Really?
Yeah.
He did fantastic, didn't he?
Yeah. We've got a good group, and hopefully we'll get some more. So yeah, they're really keen to. I'm sure they're really keen to come back to follow on what's been discussed and the ideas that they might have.
Brilliant. Thank you, Colin.
Thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything for either Mike on the last set for the work programme or Colin before he departs? Sue, did you have anything from any of your advisory panel bits which would fit in with the work programme?
The thing that I always hang out for is the older people. And I know I've said often enough, the older people can't cope with IT, but I'm being told alternatively. I mean, here's one often for an example, but I'm always conscious of the older people and also the coming out of hospital, especially when they're people on their own, of which I do see a lot and hear quite a bit. And it's a distressing time and a worrying time. I'm very conscious of that.
Can I just say something on that? That with the young people last week, looked at how young people could spread joy amongst those that are coming out of hospital or in care homes, similar to what Broadland Youth Advisory Board did, which they sent 750 postcards of poems and kind of get well and we're thinking of you, and it really built a good community spirit between older and young people. And I think Broadland Young Commissioners would like to do the same. So I'll bring that back as to what the plans are. But I think it's a brilliant way of spreading that joy and hope and happiness in this time, and bridging the gap between the generations is really important too. So we're gonna kind of try and do that. So we might need your help on.
Yeah, I think if you contact any, Jamie, Mike, or Richard, I'm sure they'll give you any help.
Yeah,
I am quite conscious of time, and I know that we have the recommendation on page 10. So what I'd like to do is we have the recommendation on page 10, item 7.1. And the recommendation is the panel is asked to note the information presented to inform discussion and future policy development. I think with so few of us, we can probably just do this with a show of hands. Is that okay, Dawn or Leah?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, everyone. Yeah, I think that's unanimous. Yes, we'll note that. So thank you very much, one and all, and thanks for everyone who spoke and presented. I think that's us done. So